Well, good evening, everybody. We feel very relieved tonight. The Democrat shutdown is finally over, thanks to House and Senate Republicans who stood together to get the job done. Absolutely no question in anybody's mind now that the Democrats were responsible for this.
Absolutely no question in anyone's mind now. How many Democrats voted to keep the government shut down last night? Well, all but 6 in the House of Representatives wanted to keep the government shut down because they're, commies. I think it's commies. 207 Democrats voted last night to keep the government shut down. And then they firebombed a synagogue and went to dinner at a very expensive place with lobbyists. Little cat scratch fever. Not covered by Obamacare, I might add. Unsurprisingly. That's right, last night on Capitol Hill, something happened. Members of Congress showed up and they voted. 216 in the end, 222, but 216 Republicans voted to reopen the government. And 6 Democrats voted to keep the government open, while 207 to reopen the government. 207 Democrats voted to keep the government closed because they're commies. There must be some kind of a payday in it for them. It's all about Obamacare and corruption and fear and political power and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Not the good guys. Not the good guys in any of this. That is... boy, is that a fact, Jack. Absolutely wacky. Whack-a-doodle-doo, I'm here to tell you. And you may remember that the people at the Washington Post, I like to share this because, the Washington Post and the New York Times are like the Bible and the Koran to the Democrat Party. And whatever they see in the Washington Post or the New York Times, they must believe. They must carry forward like the cultists that they are. Isn't it amazing? But the Washington Post accidentally admitted a couple of weeks ago that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was never actually affordable. And that's why they keep coming back for another $1 trillion, another $1.5 trillion. And they're not asking, they're demanding. And if they don't get what they want for their shakedown, then they will shut the entire government down, and they'll screw over the military and government employees and everybody that flies on commercial airliners and the air traffic controllers and the airlines themselves, costing tens and tens of millions of dollars because Democrats are milking and bilking the whole process. The American people, they're just not on the side of the American people. Not affordable. The funny headline from a couple of weeks ago. Washington Post calls out Democrats amid shutdown. The Washington Post, they called them out. They didn't really call them out, but buried in a story that they had, buried in the story, said the real problem is that the Affordable Care Act was never actually affordable. That's what the Washington Post wrote. Isn't that amazing? President Barack Obama's signature achievement, I thought that was going to be slowing the rise of the oceans, allowed people to buy insurance on a marketplace with subsidies based on their income. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Why didn't we think of that? Maybe we'd have this half of the country pay that half of the country for something that, was really covered quite well before Obama and the left got involved in our health care system. But they're not on the side of America or health care or sanity or anything else. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, the Washington Post has criticized Democratic congressional leaders for pushing to extend federal health insurance subsidies without funding offsets. They love these offsets. It's like when they fly around on their wives' Gulfstream jets, and then they give money to left-wing groups, and they say, we bought offsets for our use of the private jet. They couldn't be bigger crooks, criminals, if they were gangsters belonging to organized crime families. In fact, these guys rake in more cash than your average organized crime family. And average organized crime families probably do more good than the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Senate Republicans have cited the editorial in the pages of the Washington Post in arguing that the Democrats have prioritized policy over preventing a government shutdown. The Washington Post noted that these subsidies have exceeded original projections. No kidding. You'd think that the Democrats' projections were understated, and now we're learning that the cost, the payday that we're going to have to pay into, going to be much greater going forward in perpetuity, by the way. So the Post editorial board wrote, Democrats have demanded, they never request, they never negotiate, they always demand, and they usually have guns and mobs of mentally ill people, that Republicans agree to extend the COVID-era insurance subsidies without proposing any way to pay for it. That's what the Democrats are doing. They're demanding, and they're angry, and they're indignant, and they gnash their teeth and squint their eyes and pound the desk, and they threaten and they demand. And it's just trillions and trillions of dollars. And, you know, they took my health care premiums and the health care premiums of my best girl from $550 a month to $2,650 a month because they're making it better. You know, they're making it all better. Isn't that amazing? They just, we demand, you know, they were temporary, they were COVID-era subsidies, and because the Wuhan Red Death was loose, Republicans agreed to it at the time, and then that expired, and the Democrats said, well, nothing expired, and they pulled out guns and, you know, started shooting babies and dogs and things because it's what they do. Aren't they something? Yes, they are. Well, listen, the government was that the Republicans in the House of Representatives voted to reopen the government last night, as did a total of 6 Democrats in the House of Representatives vote to reopen the government. Every other filthy, rotten, stinking, criminal, thief Democrat, you know, Democrats, but I repeated myself several times there. The Democrats, all but 6, voted to shut the government down, I guess forever and ever, because they're just mental. They really are. But we've got a lot of other stuff to get to. That's obviously the big news of the day. House Republicans pushed, and this is another one. This is one Republican voted against. Greg Steube voted to not reopen the government last night. A Republican House member. He's the guy that hit the legit home run in the congressional baseball game in Nationals Park and Nationals Stadium. But he voted against it because somehow weaselly language got in there. And if you were a member of the Senate that was investigated by the FBI and they tapped into your phones, you can get $500,000 from the taxpayers because of that, without much explanation, you know, whether it's related to your legal expenses or whatever. But never mind that. House Republicans pushed to repeal Senate litigation provision in funding measure. It's a litigation provision because, you know, you might have had to spend $500,000 on legal fees because the left abused the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate you for political reasons because they're fascists, you know. So we've got that. I also brought in your average gallon of gas, the price of a gallon of gas, because that seems to be a topic of discussion lately as well. And did you see this? Pretty nutty. California, they were forced by the federal government to revoke commercial, you know, big truck, that in fact, the guy that killed the illegal alien that used his 18-wheeler to do a U-turn and almost run over the no U-turn sign, and then he killed 3 people in their car. He's appearing in court today. And so we learned yesterday the state of California is revoking 17,000 commercial driver's licenses that they gave to illegal aliens who couldn't pass the test. Only 17,000 18-wheelers, people not legally entitled to drive 18-wheelers, couldn't pass the test. How many of them are illegal aliens? Presumably all of them, 17,000. And they've had to California now because the federal government is pressuring them and because they're killing so many Americans. They've got to pull 17,000 commercial driver's licenses because the Democrats are such creeps and criminals. So we've got that. Also, did you see the immigration actions going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where Ilhan Omar and a lot of members of her tribe. They and as I only talked about it briefly, but the tribal warfare at the polling place when it comes to voting for the Somali mayor, the mayoral candidate, the Somali for the city of Minneapolis. You know, it used to be the Mary Tyler Moore Show. You might just make it after all. Now it's illegal alien gang members everywhere. And the Democrats, they prefer the illegal alien gang members because They're not on the side of the United States of America. Isn't that amazing? But the immigration people announced results of an operation. It's called Operation Twin Shield because it's the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and all that. A large-scale immigration fraud investigation. And when do you hear about all the illegal aliens, Somalis, and all the crimes they commit, marrying their brothers like Ilhan Omar and lying on immigration applications and forms to get visas to come to the United States to be here illegally and all the illegal stuff they do. And it looks like it's the norm with Somalis, and the Democrats love it because they want jihad in the United States, not just civil war, but jihad. Joe Rogan talking about how close we are to civil war on his podcast, but never mind that. Scores accused of immigration fraud in federal sweep in Minnesota. And wait till you hear some of the details of that. Also, speaking of illegal aliens, do you see Michelle Obama? She's back, and she's like, oh, boy, it's so hard being a black woman. You have to demand respect. Your husband was a two-term president of the United States. You were first lady. You've had the greatest free ride in the history of the world. But never mind that. Wait till you hear her caterwauling and whining and complaining. These people, can I just say, these people. Now, again, the Republicans over the dead bodies of the Democrats last night voted in the House of Representatives to reopen the government after a record-breaking government shutdown because of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, because of their greed and their selfishness. Now, President Trump last night at the White House, the 9 p.m., 10 p.m. hour, he signed the legislation brought to him from Capitol Hill, and he had the Republican leaders of the House in the Oval Office when he signed the bill, and no Democrats showed up because they were rioting and looting and firebombing the cops and stuff, doing what they usually do. President Trump in the Oval Office had his Sharpie out, his black Sharpie out, gave the Trump signature to the legislation, held it up to the large press pool in the room, and lots of Republican House leaders. The Democrats, they're not cooperating with America.
For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was.
That's what it was, a shakedown. It was extortion. It was gun to the head. It was $1.5 trillion. President Trump was having none of it. In fact, they rushed the press into the Oval Office for the event, and the sound man hadn't geared up before President Trump started talking, which is why there was that audio dropout right there. President Trump last night.
I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically, and it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you.
Get our country working again. What's the acronym for that? We got MAGA and MAHA. Get our country working. That's the Republican members of the House of Representatives there, because they're on the side of sanity and truth and justice and the American way, and the Democrat Party, more firebombing and anti-Semitism for them, isn't it? Yes, it is. So I've got the Speaker of the House. He came out and spoke last night, and he was quite strong, I thought. I thought that he was quite good last night. And I got to say, I want to give Thune, the Republican John Thune, Senator John Thune, the leader, Republican leader of the Senate, the majority leader of the Senate, a lot of credit for standing firm and not buckling and not being afraid to fight it out. And for the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, too, they stood firm, they stood tall, they stood strong, and the good guys won. The liars are coming back for another heap and helping, though. That's coming up. Yes, I want to show I have more President Trump coming up. I have the Speaker of the House coming up. And I have the communists like Hakeem Jeffries. These people. Calling them these people is about as generous as one can be at this point. Hey, 17,000 illegal aliens driving 18-wheelers across the country. What could go wrong? Democrats have a plan. Going to reduce the population. then, that'll slow the rise of the oceans. I think that's their plan. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go. We are at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Paul, calling from Woodbridge, Virginia.
Yeah, might as well.
Paulo.
Stuff out of the car.
Got to get stuff out of the car. Paul's got to get stuff out of the car.
Sure.
Hey, Paul, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
No worries.
Uh-oh. He's not hearing. He's not listening, is he? Hey, Paul. Come on, you're on national radio, for the love of God. Pull the plug. That's it. Paul's off doing other things. We're gonna have to let Paul go. He's got stuff. Paul called in to say that Paul and his best girl were also screwed over by Obamacare and had great health care plans that they could afford. And then Obama came along with the Affordable Care Act and made it unaffordable, because that's what the Democrat Party does. That's who they are. Yes, sir. Now let's go to soundbite number 3, because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, came out last night after he successfully shepherded the bill through the House of Representatives, and Republicans got it through the Senate. The 8 Democrats crossed over, and they're called traitors because they're the party of civil war and violent political, street mobs, and they're the left. They're not liberals. They're not Democrats. But the Speaker of the House last night came out after he successfully got the government reopened. The bill was being sent to the White House for the president to sign. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Well, good evening, everybody. We feel very relieved tonight. The Democrat shutdown is finally over, thanks to House and Senate Republicans who stood together to get the job done. Absolutely no question in anybody's mind now that the Democrats were responsible for this.
There seems to be some question in some minds, because Hakeem the Criminal Jeffries, that's his code name with the U.S. Capitol Police, is the criminal. That's what they call Hakeem Jeffries. The criminal, he's out there calling it the Trump health care crisis and the Republican-created health care crisis. You guys inflict Obamacare on us 15 years ago. A decade and a half later, you're pounding the table, shutting down the government because you need to rob us of another $1.5 trillion to pump up this phony, destructive, third world Barack Obama healthcare clown car. And then you say, the Republicans created a healthcare crisis. That, 5-year-olds don't lie as much as Hakeem Jeffries lies, as much as the Lizard King, Chuck Schumer, lies. He's the Lizard King. And he lies like his pants are on fire every day. And you'd think that the Democrat set his pants on fire, but no, his pants self-immolated, which is kind of unusual. But I've got more coming up from the Speaker and the liars, too. Oh, those rascally Democrats. $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. The New York Times today, the DNC, this is their headline at the New York Times, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, ordered workers back to the office. Its union isn't pleased. The DNC has union employees, and they're going on strike. They're going to... Oh, you know what else is going on today? Starbucks. Don't go for your Starbucks, because Starbucks, they've got union employees, and they're going on strike because they need more. You know what the left wants, don't you? They want more. And once you give them everything that they demand, you know what they're going to do? They're going to have more demands, because that's who they are. And the employees are now, they're announcing that there's a walkout or something going on today across the entire country because Starbucks, yes, sir. They've got the headline that's making news all over the world. Whatever it takes. That's like a variation of by any means necessary. Starbucks workers, not employees, but workers, launch U.S. strike. That's they've launched a strike in the U.S. and they have a list of demands, as you might expect, because they always have a list of demands, don't they? Yes, they do. And that's your the Starbucks. I think that's great. Whatever it takes. There's U.S. strike and call for boycott. All right, I can boycott Starbucks. That's easy for me. That's not a problem since I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. And I've been to Starbucks twice, and it was at the request of other people, So I've got to have and I had to stop and get Starbucks for Katie Finnegan. That's it. And then one day I went into Starbucks, and it was with Mr. Bo Snerdley, the great producer of the Rush Limbaugh Show, who now does his own great radio show on WABC in New York. Great guy. James Golden, Mr. Bo Snerdley, as he is more ubiquitously known, in that great unfair labor practices strike on Red Cup Day. It's Red Cup Day. In over 25 cities, comes amid stagnant negotiations with coffee chain. And they cracked the whip and said, get back to work. That's what they do. Hundreds of Starbucks workers are set to strike in more than 25 cities across the U.S. today amid stagnant negotiations with the world's largest coffee chain over a first union contract. It's a first union contract. So if you go to your Starbucks in New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, Columbus, Anaheim, various other places, the organizers plan to expand the strike to more stores and more cities. And if the executives hold firm, well, then they're really in big trouble. They're like Democrats, They're going to shut everything down and screw over everybody because they have selfish demands, and they believe that all power comes from the barrel of a gun, just like Chairman Mao and the Democrat Party. Let's get back to the government shutdown, because this is the big dog, and the government shutdown theoretically ended last night when Republicans ended the government shutdown in the Senate. And then they moved the bill where the Democrats shut down the government. 100% Democrat party shut down the government. And they did it with a gun in their hand, and they're threatening the whole country and holding everybody hostage. In fact, I saw this morning that Chuck Schumer was holed up in his office with a rifle, and he had 5 hostages. Did you see that? 5 hostages. Then there were reports of gunfire and things, but it turned out it wasn't true. It was just on NBC and CNN. It wasn't true. Isn't that amazing? But if he had taken hostages, it would be entirely unsurprising. And the Washington Post, they accidentally admitted, buried in the bowels of a story on October 6th. The real problem is that the Affordable Care Act was never actually affordable. I knew that. And the Washington Post for 15 years lied every day. All of their employees, when they came to work, every day for 15 years, and they lied silently on weekends. They lied and they lied and they lied about Obamacare and how the communists were going to make everything better because it's so much better in countries where you can't get an appointment for 2.5 years and you never get your knee surgery or whatever. All right, let's go back to the Speaker of the House last night, because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, I got to say, he was in good form. He was looking good, and he has a big win here, and he should be given credit because past speakers of the House, name your last Republican Speaker of the House that was as good as Mike Johnson. Now, I mean, it doesn't make him the risen Yahweh or anything, but he's done, we've had some I'll clean it up, tin cup Republican speakers in the House of Representatives over the last couple of decades, not so good. But I got to say, Mike Johnson is good, and this has been a really a great performance by Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives. And also in the Senate, I've got to say, John Thune, there's been no messing around, no stupid press conferences, no mealy-mouthed anything, straight up, standing tall, and he definitely stands tall, and standing tall and telling the Democrats what they can do with it, and then winning and standing firm and not giving in. Great stuff. And then the Speaker of the House, same thing, digging in, standing firm. Now, there's this one provision that annoyed at least one member of the House of Representatives, Greg Steube, because he didn't like some provision that was thrown in that Republican senators, at least, that were investigated by the FBI and they had all their phone records seized, may have had to get legal help, and they can petition for apparently up to $500,000, $500,000, taxpayer dollars to bail them out in some way. I honestly, I haven't seen anybody discuss. I haven't seen all the details on this, but it was the Democrats abusing, like the Soviets that they are, the Department of Justice and the KGB, the FBI, to investigate their political rivals and to get all their phone records, which the Democrats have been doing for a long time with James Rosen, who was then with Fox News, the reporter now with Newsmax, James Rosen, and a friend of mine. They investigated him and his parents, seized all their emails, their phone records, because that's what communists do, and so that's what the Democrats do. The Speaker of the House last night, he came out and he spoke after they ended the government shutdown over the objections and the dead bodies of the overwhelming majority of Democrats in the House of Representatives, because they're not on the side of the American people. Everybody knows that. And I got to tell you, if you grew up a Democrat, you're in a Democrat family or whatever, and you've always been a Democrat voter, I hope you're paying attention right now, because this will lead to, if you still, I'm still a Democrat, then your head is wedged into a dark and remote location from which there may be no return. Last night, the vote was going on. My best girl and I were in the kitchen. We were eating food and, being casual and everything. And the Republicans, 216 Republicans voted on the motion to concur in the Senate amendment, which means open the government, right? And 216 Republicans said, yes, let's concur with the Senate amendment, which means open the government. And let's see, 6 Democrats said, yes, let's open the government. 6, a total of 6 Democrats. 207 Democrats voted to keep the government shut down, and 6 Democrats voted to open the government. If that's your party, then you just might be a rectal aperture. But let's go to the Speaker of the House from last night, soundbite number 4, Speaker Mike Johnson, talking about those dirty, dastardly crooks, the Democrats.
The Democrats openly admitted, many of them said it in their own words, that they use the American people as leverage in this political game. They knew that it would cause that pain to the people, and they did it anyway. They did it for their own selfish purposes, their political purposes, and it was a game they played with real people's lives. It's something that is very difficult to forgive.
And we played the sound bites of all the Democrats using the word leverage, and the Democrat leadership and Democrat rank and file in the House and the Senate. And we need to leverage this. They shut the government down because they had a gun in their hand. That was the gun. And the extortion that they were going to use to extract $1.5 trillion. The old line in Washington was many years ago, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. The Democrats have done that times 1,000. Now it's $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. The Democrats. And by the way, flights are shut down all over the place in the United States because of the Democrats. Even today, the flight cuts by the FAA will stay at 6% of flights in the United States as staff, the air traffic controllers and beyond, start to return to work over the Democrat Party's objections, because they want to cripple and paralyze the United States of America. They're just not the good guys. And the airline industry, there's an organization, they have a representative organization, Airlines for America, and they put out a statement saying after the government was reopened, courtesy of the Republicans over the objections of the Democrats, the Airlines for America organization put out a statement saying, we implore Congress to ensure future funding bills do not allow aviation to become collateral damage in Washington's policy debates. And that is a perfectly straightforward statement from Airlines for America, and good for them. Isn't that great? The Secretary of the Department of Transportation is Sean Duffy. He used to be a member of the House of Representatives, and he put out a statement as well. Remember, Pete Buttigieg was the Secretary of Transportation. He thinks he's running for president now, and he's cross-dressing all the way. Isn't that amazing? So Sean Duffy put out a statement. The FAA safety team is encouraged to see our air traffic control staffing surge, meaning people coming back to work when they weren't being paid, because of the Democrats. And they feel comfortable with pausing the reduction schedule to give us time to review the airspace. They got to manage the airspace, and it's true. And the Airlines for America again, saying, why don't we not use the air travel and airlines and air traffic controllers as pawns in game of life like they're Mungo. But so far, today, we've already had 992 cancellations, flight cancellations, commercial airliners today. 992, nearly 1,000. In fact, this number is an hour older, so it might be over 1,000 now, and every one of them is on the Democrats. A total of 518 delays so far. Isn't that amazing? Because the Democrats and the airports in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Denver, in Atlanta are having the worst delays and the worst cancellations, and it's all because of the Democrats. Again, there were 6 Democrats that voted to open the government in the House of Representatives, and only 6, and every other Democrat voted to keep the government shut down because Chuck Schumer is holding them hostage. He's got a gun to their heads. But Jared Golden and who is that? Guzenkamp Perez and Don Davis, Henry Cuellar, who's, I think, the only pro-life Democrat in the world, Tom Suozzi, and who is it? Adam Gray. Those are the 6 Democrats that voted to reopen the government. Each of them comes from a district that Trump won in the presidential election. Now, nothing could be more ridiculous. And 2 Republicans voted no, Thomas Massey and Greg Steube. Greg Steube has a specific complaint about this $500,000 payment that members of Congress are eligible for if the FBI spied on them and got their phone records, which sounds kind of wacky. And then you got radical extremists, like he's one of these man-gropers. His name is Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. And he pinned that man against the wall and grabbed his genitalia and groped him in the men's room at a Democrat Party fundraiser. And the man complained, a lifelong Democrat, a gay man, and Cory Booker groped his genitals because that's what Democrats do. You know, when you're famous, they let you. Right? Isn't that what Cory Booker said? Isn't that right? But Cory Booker put out a statement saying, the Democratic Party needs change. Yeah, it needs change. I think there's a song about that, isn't there? It is time for a new generation of leadership to stand up to Trump. How many generations is this going to go on for, you mental case? Honestly, you need a new generation to stand up for Trump. You guys should be self-immolating every day. And to all those complicit in sabotaging the American dream, that's why I need to stand up to Trump and all those who are complicit in sabotaging the American dream. You guys are bankrupting the country and sabotaging capitalism, Western civilization in America. Our country needs a comeback. I thought for a moment it said our country needs a communist. I thought that it said that, but that's just a bit of a typo. Isn't that amazing? These people, they are just not on our side. So we've got that going. We've got that going right now. But I've got more from the speaker, who I think was great and very strong. And also Stephen Miller, the always ferocious White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. He was on after the Republicans reopened the government last night. Democrats are still working to sabotage. And a great stuff from a Republican congresswoman from Florida, Laura Lee. She was on the television. And also, did you see ABC Fake News, John Karl? He was on the Stephen Colbert Show last night because the propaganda must continue apace. The Democrat Party, they don't want to have to burn down a network. But wait till you hear John Karl on Stephen Colbert last night. An embarrassment to every one of them. Hey, we're back. Look at that. I've got a bunch of great audio to get to and other topics of discussion as well. And also, you see Australia, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC Australia, they also deceptively edited President Trump's January 6th speech. And it looks like they got caught. And it looks like they're going to have to be sued for $1 billion also, maybe $2 billion. I got it. You know, if you know that you're a pathological liar when you're in college and you just lie about everything, and you're thinking, hey, journalism is the line of work for me, which is what happens every time. I think maybe journalism is not the line of work for you if you just lie about everything. Maybe you should become a lawyer. Maybe you should go to law school. What do you think? That makes more sense, doesn't it? Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to I'm going to come back to all kinds of great audio, laying it all out for you. Let's go to Sid, calling from Los Angeles, California. El Sid, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Sid. We're getting a lot of this today. Sid is Sid in the grocery store, too? Sid. Hey, pick up your phone, Sid. The guy's yelling at you on the that's a cell phone. Wow. It's a pretty wackadoodle-doo today. What's going on here? So we might have a problem with our phone system, but I don't think that's it. All right, let's go to Mike calling from Gainesville, Virginia. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris Plant. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you very much.
I thought we were going to have a clean resolution. They were telling us that and they put two things in this clean resolution that shouldn't have been there. One is the $500,000 for each of these senators that got spied upon. That reimbursement for their legal fees doesn't make a lot of sense. When one branch of the government misbehaves and spies on the other branch of the government, that shouldn't cost the taxpayers money to cover their legal fees. That's ridiculous. And the other thing that was in the bill was this demolition of the THC hemp industry that got into the bill. I'm not sure if it passed the House, but it was in the Senate version of it. But we were supposed to have a clean resolution, and they put two things in there at the last second that nobody knew about or spoke about or debated.
I don't even know about the THC thing. The $500,000 I know about. Tell me about the THC thing.
It was reported that they've destroyed a $20 billion industry on this cannabis, THC, hemp, CBD industry, that they somehow outlawed it in the United States for people to grow hemp or THC. I don't know if it was actually still in the continuing resolution, but the Republicans were taking the moral high ground, saying that this was just a clean resolution, and then they stick these things in. You never know what they're going to stick in these things at the last second when they know they're going to be able to pass them.
Well, that's certainly always true. Yeah, the continuing resolution, the clean CR, as they call it, because we all have to speak code, like we all work for the NSA. But you're right. The bill to reopen the government would shut down these THC products. Axios reporting the story. Congress is poised to pass a spending bill that would end the record-long government shutdown. But there's a catch. It also includes a ban on many THC-infused products. Wow. Huh.